Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another show, for another episode of our Raw Reaction series in combination with our Let's Talk Arsenal show. More about that in a second. Today's show is going to be slightly different to what you've come to expect from your 8 a.m. shows. Arsenal are playing tonight, and because it's happening in such close proximity to the last game and over the weekend, we haven't been able to have time to do our usual timing of a preview show. So we're going to combine the two shows. It's going to be in two parts. First half is going to be, as you've come to expect, all your updates on the Arsenal news side of things. And then the second half of the show is going to be what you've come to expect from the preview show. Trust me, everything that you come to expect from both shows is going to be here. So we'll crack on with things. We're going to have 5 minutes of news updates, 5 minutes of your questions, and then we're going to run straight into our partnered preview show. So strap in, get ready, drop a like on the video, drop a press on that subscription button if you haven't done so already. And we kick off by telling you, of course, as always, go and subscribe to the Arsenal Way. Some really good content going on over there from myself, Chris Davison, Bailey Keogh, and the rest of the team as well. Make sure you are subscribed as always. We kick off, though, with the story which Mikel Arteta has been speaking ahead of the game against Leeds this evening, in which he has been speaking and asked about the possibility of playing that 4-4-2 in the long term and in the future. He says, we thought that they were going to play in a certain way, and we planned with the players that we thought could help the most and have a good cohesion and a link between them. Then it's up to the players. They are the ones that did it. It's interesting how he's talking about how they're looking to try and tackle opposition podcasts. And when you're tackle opposition kind of formations and systems and the way in which the manager wants to set up. And they want to tackle this in certain ways based upon who they're facing, which has been something that's been debated and argued between fans and supporters, whether or not Arsenal need to kind of focus on themselves and have a defined kind of 11, or whether or not they need to move away from that and move towards looking at the opposition and setting up to try and tackle and break down what they are setting up with. It's not the only thing that he talked about. He talked about Friday night. He talked about kind of Aubameyang and Lacazette's responsibilities on that. He says, that is where I'm going. They lead by example, and not only there, but as well at the training ground. Certain things, a role they could have had 3 years ago in the squad, now it has changed. Human beings change themselves every 6 months. They have all new selves. I thought it was 6 years. I know what he's trying to get at. I don't know if you've ever heard the phrase of human beings change themselves every 6 years or 8 years, because the amount of cells that are in your body change and are replicated, and the ones that were there 6 or 8 years ago have died off. But it's not every 6 months. So I don't know where Arteta's biology degree came from, but he said human beings change themselves every 6 months. They have all new selves, and it's credible. So we are able to adapt very quickly and manipulate and change our minds very quickly as well. They are doing that for the benefit of the club, but for sure for the benefit of themselves. Really strange comment from Mikel Arteta. I don't know what he was going for with that, but he got it completely wrong with the biology side of things. So he needs to do a little bit more research on that one. Antonio Conte. Now, this is kind of the big talking point around the world of football, not specifically just Manchester United, because with Arsenal's managerial situation, a lot of Arsenal fans are concerned that we may miss out on the opportunity to appoint Antonio Conte, because he looks like he could be going to Manchester United. The conflicting reports are all over the place. I look forward to getting into work this morning and talking to our Manchester United correspondents over at Manchester Evening News and seeing how they're feeling about this, because it's so confusing to try and work out who's going to be going where. I want to know how you feel about the possibility of Antonio Conte going to Manchester United. From the news that's kind of leaking out there, it seems like he'd be keen on that. He'd be keen on moving to Manchester United, but whether or not it's the right move for him, well, you will have to wait and see. And lastly, Chris Wheatley of Football.London has reported that Arteta intends to go very strong in tonight's game against Leeds. We'll be talking more about that in a second, but it is unlikely to expect any of the young stars to feature, especially in the starting 11. Maybe on the bench. There is a rule change for tonight's game in which you're allowed 5 substitutions, which was not the case for the second and third rounds when we beat West Brom and AFC in Wimbledon. So that could change the perspective of the bench, but it would be a shame not to see any kind of youth players used whatsoever in the team, but we'll see how that changes. Now, for the last 5 minutes of the morning show, before we crack on with the preview side of things, this is the opportunity for you guys to ask a couple of questions to myself. So if you do have some questions, some thoughts, some theories, do throw them into the chat box in the next 5 minutes or so before we move on to the next part of the show. So I need to use less words with the letter S in, clearly. Let's see what you guys are saying about the possibility of Antonio Conte. Fun Trick says, I think that Ollie will stay. Good morning to you, Matt. Good to have in the chat box. I didn't say morning to everybody, first of all. Colin, Inga, Harvey, thank you so much. Bungle, David, Aaron, Maicon joining us as well. Jonathan, Steve, we got Tom, we got EKK, we've got Nikolai, we've got Jez, we've got Julian, we've got Dan, we've got Stephen. Thank you ever so much, guys, for tuning in. Please make sure you continue to make this part of your morning routine and drop a like on the show if you haven't done so already. Rahul says, Erdegaard is going through a bad spell of performance. Do you think he will start today against Leeds? We will have to wait and see. I do look forward to seeing whether or not we do see the best of Martin Erdegaard, but it's certainly one that we are going to have to wait and see whether or not he can click back into gear. It does seem. Julian says, Tom, what's your thoughts on the Toons takeover? Jealous it wasn't us? No, I'm not jealous because I've got my own thoughts about kind of the background of the takeover. I wouldn't want that kind of consortium to come in with the association to all of the stuff behind the scenes. Personally, I know I live in a fantasy land where I'd like a billionaire owner that's completely clean. I'm aware of that I live in a complete imaginary place to want that, but that's what I want, and it's how I live with myself personally. So no, I'm not jealous in the slightest. So why am I jealous of a team that is second bottom of the Premier League right now? So there you go. Tim says, in your opinion, if Conte had the choice between Arsenal and United, which would more likely be his choice? I think that if he had the choice, he'd go to Manchester United. You're able to spend a lot more money. I think the squad is overall better and he's got more world-class players at hand and at his disposal. So I think he would probably choose Manchester United over Arsenal. Can we win the League Cup, says Mayor? Well, any team can win the League Cup technically, but for me, I don't think there's going to be the option to go all the way in January because of the African Cup of Nations. The semi-finals are taking place over January, and that's where we'll be losing Aubameyang, Pepe, Partey, El Neni. So my assumption will be that I think we can reach the quarters. If we reach the semis against one of the top sides in the Prem, I think that's probably where we'll come undone. Maybe unless it's Liverpool, who are expected, of course, to lose Salah and Mane. I'm sure there's some others as well that they might be losing too. So maybe if we get one of the other teams that's heavily affected by losing key players, there's a chance. But I think it's going to be tough to expect us to get through in that January period. Let's go to e-commerce. It says, Tom, who are the top 5 performers in an Arsenal shirt this season? It's a very on-the-spot question. You can't really look too far past the defence at the moment. You have to say Aaron Ramsdale has been really good. Tomiyasu, both of them since they've come in have been unbeaten. They've not lost a game yet. I think Gabriel's been excellent since coming in as well. Looking kind of into the forward line of players, Emile Smith-Rowe and Saka. You probably have to highlight those two beyond everyone else. So Saka, Smith-Rowe, Tomiyasu, Ramsdale, and Gabriel is who I would probably pick as my top 5 performers. We've got a couple of minutes before we move on to the preview show. So if you do have any thoughts and feelings, do put them into the chat box. We'll try and answer some of your questions as well at the end of the preview show as well. King says, does Erdegaard as a right winger in a 3-4-3 look good? He has had his best season playing there for Real Sociedad. Yes, he played also there for Vitesse in the Eredivisie as well. He can play there. Does tend to shift out to the right when he plays in the number 10 role as well. So it's kind of instinctual for him to shift right so he can then move the ball onto his left foot. But there's all the hope in the world that he could play there. I just don't think that that's something that Arteta would choose to do, considering the fact he's got Saka and then Pepe also there as well. Stephen says, would you be happy if I assume you mean Zidane becomes the next Arsenal manager? If he was Arsenal's next manager after Mikel Arteta, I'd be very intrigued because he's only obviously been really at Real Madrid. He was in charge of the youth side there as well. But he done very, very well. He won lots of Champions Leagues and got them a league title as well, I believe. So why wouldn't I be happy to see someone like that come in? But it would be interesting about how he may tackle how he might tackle that side of the game. That is certainly one to be keeping your eyes on if we do decide to move on from Mikel Arteta. Let's scroll down a little bit more and go to Olu, who says, "Hey Tom, what do you think about Arteta getting to 50 wins quicker than anyone bar George Graham?" It's interesting. I think it's certainly not something I would analyze his entire kind of career at Arsenal over. I think that you look at everything in context, but as an achievement on its own, it's a really positive thing to see. So that's really, really good. And finally, Steph says, "Tom, I think Arsenal fans forget that we have young players. Wenger even said young players will cost you 2 points. With young players, they are inconsistent. And we will see some inconsistent performances, but it has been our strategy to bring in more young players this season. We saw 6 players of 23 years and younger brought in, so maybe that's the way that we will move forwards. Anyway, we are going to move on to the second part of our show as I quickly try and press a lot of buttons to make this show look very different very quickly. So without further ado, let's crack on with the next part of today's show. Okay, you join me for the preview show. I nearly managed to press all the buttons. We got one more to press. Here we go. There it is. We've changed the right color scheme. I'm very happy as well to be joined, as always, for our preview shows by a couple of our members. Let's introduce to you Pablo. How do you know?
I'm very happy as well.
Oh, I can hear myself through your screen.
Oh, sorry. It's because I
don't mind
watching your show.
But, there you go. How you doing, mate?
I was watching your show, mate. Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. Morning, everyone.
Good morning to everybody in the chat box. This is new, getting our members up at 8 a.m. We're also joined, making his debut on the show. It's Tariq. How you doing, mate? Are you well?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for having me, Tom. It's nice to see you, Pablo, and good morning, everyone in the chat as well.
Yeah, brilliant to have you on, Tariq. I know you got your own channel. Don't worry, I'm going to give you a chance to talk all about that before we wrap things up, and I look forward to hearing your thoughts. But just to kick off, Tariq, with yourself, and then we'll go to Pablo. How are you feeling about tonight's game?
I'm intrigued. That's probably the best word to put it. There's going to be, well, who knows with Arteta, he has played a strong lineup, even against West Brom. I was actually at that game because it's not too far from where I live. And so, yeah, I'm intrigued to see a few players play and start who haven't really had much minutes. So, yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to, really.
The mute button getting me there again. It is going to be an interesting kind of seeing how we balance the lineup, Pablo, ahead of the game on Sunday against Leicester. We played a lot of first-team players in the game against Wimbledon and against West Brom. Do you see Pablo him making still lots of changes, or do you think he's going to go strong again tonight?
Well, I personally think that we're going to make a few changes. The way I'm looking at it is, obviously, we want to win every cup that we're in. Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt. But to me, our priorities should be the league. And I don't know. I think with Leicester coming up, what's that? 4 or 5 days after we've played this game. I personally think that he won't make drastic changes, where he'll change all 11 players. But I can see him resting a few players because you've got the likes of Saka, Smith Rowe, all these players that have literally been working their nuts off recently. And playing quite well, but with high intensity, high energy. You can't keep using the same players. And also, you need to give the likes of like Holding and people like that a chance to sort of get themselves back into the team and prove themselves and hopefully put a bit of competition to the original players that are starting every week at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. I think that we need to see certain players given a rest, but we need to remember that this is an opportunity to springboard through each of those games and keep the momentum up and build that through. So let's see what you guys have gone for. Tariq, I think we're starting with your lineup. Talk us through what you've picked, mate.
So obviously for Leno to come in goal, Ramsdale's been excellent this season. I was very impressed with his performances, and even in the last game against Villa. So I think this is the perfect opportunity for Leno to get some game time, maybe even push Ramsdale if he's going to be making any errors. As somebody mentioned in the chat, and you did as well when you brought it up, Tom, we have a young team, so it's going to be interesting to see if the likes of Leno can really lead this team, and even from the second role that he is now, At the back four, as you can see, it's quite mixed. Cedric White, it's Cedric White, Gabriel Tierney. I think that he will play Gabriel and White because Gabriel did miss the start of the season and he's still kind of regaining minutes after his injury. Ben White missed with illness, the obvious illness that's out there. And Kieran
appreciate
Tierney,
that.
yeah, I know. I don't want to say it. And with Tierney at left back, because he's missing the last game, I think it's important for him to regain minutes and make sure that he's back fit. So we want him to be sharp enough for the game on Saturday. And in the midfield, I've gone with Lokonga as well. Lokonga's not played in every game with Ainsley Maitland-Niles. And I think this is a huge game for Ainsley because when he came on against Aston Villa, I wasn't that impressed. I think that he was a bit sloppy in possession. His touch was loose and he didn't really stamp his authority on the game in the midfield. So for Ainsley Maitland-Niles, especially with the way that Leeds press, I do think he has that mobility. And what I'm looking at and keep my eye on Ainsley Maitland-Niles because this is the player that I'm putting the spotlight on. How he deals with the press in terms of pressure, how he deals with the ball under pressure. Can he progress the ball? We know he likes to dribble when he plays in that right back or wing back position. So let's see how he progresses through the midfield there. And then with the front with Ødegaard as well, having dropped his performances in the previous games, in the past couple, I'd say we haven't really seen the best of Ødegaard since Spurs. I'm not too sure. He's not even been pressing as well as we've seen previously against Spurs, always leading the press with Aubameyang up top. So I think this is an opportunity to get Ødegaard back into some form, gain some confidence, as I think we will need him. And I'm not too sure if Arteta will go with the same formation that we did against Leicester, as we did against Villa, against Leicester. And then the front three of Martinelli, Pepe and Balogun. 3 players at the Arsenal fan base, which have been really calling for with Martinelli. Seems like he's getting called to have been playing some minutes. I really want to see him play. Pepe needs to have a good performance. I think he's got some redemption against Leeds after what happened last season during lockdown. And then Balogun up top. I'm not sure if he'll play Balogun because he seems to trust Eddie Nketiah, but what we want to see, and I'm not sure if Eddie Nketiah, with his contracts ending at the end of the season, I think that we need to look to the future towards Balogun now, who needs to get some minutes. He's been performing really well for the under-23s too.
Absolutely. Really well talked through, mate. Pablo, tell us about your team, fella.
Right, okay. I've gone slightly different. Obviously, Leno in goal. Do you know what? Actually, that's one of the positions that I personally really want to see what's going to happen because if I'm right in saying this is the first game Leno's going to play since he's kind of dropped into a number 2 position. So it'll be interesting to see how he reacts to that.
He's frozen his own net.
Yeah, that's what he'll probably do. But I've gone with a completely different back four to what I expected against Leicester. As you can see there, I think Chambers over Cedric because of the last few games that Chambers have played. He has done okay. He's not been too bad. Tavares, however you say it.
Hold on. You're Brazilian. You should be Portuguese.
You're confusing me now with how I'm saying it. He was absolutely brilliant against Villa. Really was, really good. Obviously, we still need to see whether he can defend under pressure. We haven't seen that side of his game yet, but I was really impressed with what I saw. With Tierney, I think Tierney's back to fitness. I would personally see how this game goes and see if he still can keep that momentum up. If not, then bring Tierney back again against Leicester. Just because I'm a massive Tierney fan, it's more of a personal thing than performances themselves. I've gone with Partey in the middle because Lokonga has been brilliant and I'd starting against Leicester. I just feel a little bit of experience in the midfield to try and get with that midfield because I believe that Lokonga and Maitland-Niles both an experience in that. Maitland-Niles an experience in that position playing for Arsenal's first team, plus Lokonga as well. So I think Partey will bring a little bit of stability and sort of help Maitland-Niles to play hopefully a bit better. And then the attacking lot, obviously Martinelli, I'll be really angry if he doesn't start. This is a game that you need to be playing Martinelli. Yeah,
Mm.
you have to rest Saka, you have to rest Smith Rowe. So why not play him? Yeah, Odegaard got a lot to prove, same as Pepe. And again, I've gone with Lacazette up front just to try and bring a little bit of stability and a little bit of maturity to that attacking line. So yeah, that's my team.
Fair enough, mate. I've gone for quite a lot of similar to both of you. I did go for Cedric as well in the right back position. I think that that's going to be an area of the pitch that we need to see more forward thinking in, and kind of seeing that run up to the right hand side supporting Pepe. Pepe kind of struggles when he doesn't have that right back supporting him. And Cedric, of all of our right backs that we have, I think Tomiyasu, Chambers, he's the most offensive of them all. He's the one that is going to overlap Pepe and going to create those overlaps. I like Chambers a lot, as Pablo, you said there, and I think Chambers actually in the early part or the end part of last season was definitely our best right back and offering the most in terms of deliveries into the box. But I just don't know. I don't think he's played a minute of football since August, Chambers. So I don't know how fit he would even be at this point. I mean, I know we've been training, but so out of practice. And Cedric obviously has too, but he played in the other game against Wimbledon, so maybe he's got that for him too. Holding Emery coming in, just resting White and Gabriel. I understand the theory, Tariq, what you were talking about earlier about using them and kind of maintaining that chemistry between them. I don't think centre-backs need the same amount of rest as your forward line, but you know, I'd just kind of swapping them out of rotation. I feel like Leeds are going to make a fair amount of changes. I know that they started a decent team when they played against who was it they played in the last round? They nearly lost to. I think it was Fulham. They got beaten on penalties by, and they played a fairly strong team. But I think they'll with their league form, they may make quite a few changes. We know that Bamford's out. We know that Ayling is out, and we know they've got another player out as well in the middle of the field as well too somewhere. So they the centre back Robin Koch is also out. So they've got three key first team players out. They aren't going to want to risk anymore. I think they will make severe changes, and we will be able to cope with kind of the second string lead side. Tavares, we don't really have too much of a choice bar Kolasinac, so we don't have much of a choice. We play Tavares, it's as simple as that. El Neni comes in for me just to give Partey a bit of a rest, but I wouldn't mind seeing Partey in there. I think that we've shown that his injuries kind of past him now, and him playing week in, week out is the best for him. I reckon that he'll be pressing Mikel Arteta to play. He seems to just want to play every single game as much as he can. Maitland-Niles, this is a massive game for him, really, to give kind of his opportunity and for him to stake a claim for competing with Lokonga for a central midfield position. Lokonga looks like he's got it at the moment, but Ainsley Maitland-Niles looks like he's going to be pushing for every spot he can. Odegaard, again, another player that needs to take this chance when he gets it, as does Pepe. And Martinelli, Pablo, I couldn't agree with you more. I will be annoyed if Martinelli is not in some shape or form playing in this game. I want to see him given a chance. On the left-hand side, he played on the right against Wimbledon and was sprightly, but it's just not where he's most effective. So I want to see him on the left. And Balogun staying in that number striker role. I was tempted to choose Lacazette. I kept changing my mind about it, but I kind of want to see him play. I was talking to Kaya on the Arsenal Way yesterday about Balogun, and he's watching pretty much every game of the under-23s and says that he's just far above that level, and he needs to be given the opportunities in the Arsenal first team. So that concludes all of our lineups, and as always, our preview shows are in partnership with FansBet, so do go check out the links in the description to have a go on next weekend's betting action for all of that stuff as well. But before we wrap up, we will need to get some predictions from you guys. And Chatbox, this is your chance to throw in your predictions for tonight's game. Scorelines, of course. If this is not the usual show that you tune in for, if you're tuning in at 8 a.m. expecting the news show, we did that at the start, so make sure you rewind and listen to it. But this is how we do our preview shows. So if you're ever interested in more content from the channel, make sure that you are subscribed and you're tuning in. Usually the preview shows are a day or two before the games, but because of the weird timing of tonight's one, we've done it the morning of. Tariq, we'll start with you. What's your prediction and first scorer, pal?
For me, I think the game, I think it'll be close. I think it'll be tight in terms of the players that we're going to have. If we do go for a team similar to yours, Tom, and Pablo's, it will be a bit of a cagey game, and the players aren't as sharp. The players that we picked, like the likes of Cedric, Ainsley Maitland-Niles, Pepe played in against Crystal Palace, but Martinelli hasn't had too many minutes. Balogun, of course, El Neni. So I think it will be difficult no matter what because of that lack of sharpness. But I think we will edge it, and I think we will win by 2-1. And I'm hoping that Martinelli will grab the first goal.
Fingers crossed, mate, because that would be a massive boost for him. Pablo, scoreline and scorer, please.
Very much like Tarek, I think it's going to be a cagey game. We can't seem to have more than one game or more than 2 games in a bounce where we high tempo, quick football. So I think it's going to be a slow game, a bit of a dull game, to be fair. Not of like just because of the changes and everything else. So I'm thinking 2-1 as well. Arsenal and Lacazette's a good first goal.
I am not going to forget my prediction, and I'm going to go for. I'm going to go for a 3-1. I feel like just changing so much about the back line, and there's always the threat that Leno might throw a paddy and throw the ball in his own net. So there's that as well. So I'm going to go with a 3-1. A scorer, I would love to see Martinelli score too. So, and I'm going tonight, so I would love to see him pop up on the pitch with a goal. And I think this is probably going to be my last game with Mike before he goes back to the States as well. So we're looking forward to seeing Mike from the Gooners pod. Make sure you check out Gooners versus Cancer and the great cause that goes on over there. Link to the charity is, as always, in the video description. They're doing some amazing competitions with some great prizes, so do go and check out the link to Gooners versus Cancer in today's video description. Pablo, thanks ever so much for coming on, mate. Am I going to see you at the game this evening, or are you taking the night off?
Taking the night off today. Yeah, it's a shame.
Fair enough. Not fancying a cold night. Cold night against Leeds. Not for you.
No, it's quite busy today with work and stuff like that, and I'm up early tomorrow morning. So after the last time, I struggled the next day, so I wanted to make sure I make it to work tomorrow. So
fair enough, fella. Fair enough. Tariq, thanks so much for coming on the show, mate. Really good debut. I promise we'll get you on for a longer preview show next time, but really appreciate your time. And then make sure you give your own channel a shout out, fella.
Yeah, thank you very much for letting me come on, Tom. Appreciate that. What a wonderful community you do have,
Thanks,
even in
mate.
the Discord, in the chat. Look how everybody remains respectful. And guys, that's what I want to bring over onto my channel. And what I do, I'm not specifically focused on Arsenal. We talk all things football, Premier League, Champions League, international breaks as well, all things. So yeah, go check that out. I will be doing a watch long for tonight's game, and it'd be lovely to see a lot of you guys over there.
Absolutely. Go check out link to the channel. I'll make sure to put in today's description as well, Tariq, if you send me that over after the show. Yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. We'll be back tomorrow morning for the kind of the reaction, I suppose, of tonight's game. I'm at the game, so we'll be able to do one straight afterwards. But there'll be tomorrow morning's 8 a.m. show to cover that as well. Do drop a like on today's video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. If you're watching on playback, either on audio form or on Spotify, you'll be able to check out the link in the description to Tariq's channel as well. So make sure you check that one out. See you very soon, guys. Have a fantastic day. And as always, up the Arsenal.